Hello, it's Amanda from Reddy's Rainforest. Did you know variety is the spice of life for chameleons? We try to offer as many different feeder insects as possible in captivity. There are more than just crickets available. In fact, I'm going to show you a list of 14 different feeder insects that are somewhat readily available. First is the most common, the banded cricket. These can be found in most pet shops, lots of sources online, or a local reptile show. The banded cricket makes a great feeder. They gut load extremely well. We like to use these as our baseline staple feeder. Next is the dubia roach. These are also extremely common and can be found at lots of different sources online, at local reptile shows, and you can even start your own colony at home. You do have to be careful with this as a main staple due to their uric acid that can build up in the dubias. Make sure to always feed the smaller sizes. I can talk more about this in a separate video. Next is the superworm, not to be confused with the mealworm. They are not the same thing. These are still considered a treat bug, but they can be gut loaded extremely well to change their nutritional content. Mealworms, on the other hand, are just like feeding cardboard. Next, we have the silkworm, which is one of our favorite feeders. They are extremely nutritious for your chameleons. The only downside is they eat a special diet. They can be gut loaded before fed off, but once you give them a different food, it can kill them. We do not gut load silkworms. We only use the mulberry chow. Since we don't have access to a live mulberry tree to provide fresh leaves, really the only downside to feeding silkworms is if you feed too many, you might have a soft poop, since they don't really have any crunch to them. Silkworms do have a secondary feeder option. Once a silkworm pupates, it will become a silkworm moth, which the silkworm moths can be fed off too. Next, we have hornworms. We like to think of hornworms as chameleon Gatorade, perfect for that extra boost of hydration when needed. These are also on the treat feeder list, not a staple option. Hornworms will pupate into moths that can be fed off just like the silkworm moths, only if your chameleon is an adult, because the hornworm moths are quite large. Next is black soldier fly larvae. These are amazing feeders that gut load extremely well. They are high in calcium and just an overall good staple feeder to add to the list. The black soldier fly larvae will also pupate into black soldier flies, which is great mental stimulation and a hunting activity for your chameleon. It's also really fun to watch them hunt the flies down. Fun fact, black soldier fly do not have mouths. You will not have to gut load them. Red runner roaches, or the Turkish roach, is just another feeder roach. They're easy to breed if you want to have your own colony. They're a little bit more active than the dubia roach if your chameleon really likes the thrill of the hunt. These also don't tend to have as much of the uric acid buildup in their systems as the dubias do. Next is the green banana roach. These are a neat roach that do breed almost as good as the red runners, but do require a little bit more care. They can fly. They are very colorful, being bright green. The chameleons just love hunting them down. I think the color does help. There is another dubia type roach that's called a discoid roach. These are also easy to breed, basically a cousin of the dubia. These are a good staple to use instead of a dubia if you live in places like Florida where dubias are illegal. We just use them as just another feeder roach in the roach arsenal. Next is the blue bottlefly. These are like big, shiny blue horseflies. They're bigger than a housefly, and it's really fun to watch your chameleons hunt them down in their enclosure. Another great mental exercise for your chameleons. These can be found from online sources. And finally, last on the list is grasshoppers. There are a couple of companies now that are captive breeding grasshoppers for your chameleons. Grasshoppers make a great staple. Some have even said it's gotten their picky eaters to start eating again once grasshoppers were introduced. There are also another feeder that gut load really well, and it's fun to watch them get eaten.